Spanish boys' school. There's actually, some of you guys can probably see there's a plaque on the wall that kind of explains that on the other side of the plant there. But it turns out that many of the young guys who were attending school here, like I said, a lot of them were orphans from that first fire. Okay, and unfortunately for them, they basically ended up attending school here really just long enough to be caught in the second Great Fire of New Orleans. That happened just 6 years after the first one did. Okay, so 6 years later, basically the whole thing happened all over again. That time, 60% of the city burned to the ground, and it was during that second Great Fire here that 5 young boys lost their lives right here on this ground where we're standing. Okay, now again, the building back then was different, but basically what happened is the boys got trapped upstairs and ended up dying of smoke inhalation. Okay, not a good way to go. And really ever since that time, and especially ever since this place has been turned into the Andrew Jackson Hotel, and there's people sleeping in here every night and stuff. This guy's name is Michael. He worked here throughout the mid-90s, and Michael's whole thing was he didn't really mind working the night shifts here. You know, he said, first of all, I don't really believe in ghosts that much. Second of all, if weird stuff happens in here, I reckon I could probably handle it. You know, I'm a grown man. I'm here for a paycheck, whatever it takes, you know, I'm going to do it. So he's in here, he's working these night shifts all the time, and he said, sure enough, weird stuff happened in there quite often. He said mostly it was little minor things. You know, he'd be in there at night, he'd hear little noises out in the courtyard, little footsteps and stuff. A lot of the staff here have reported that kind of thing, or he would find things vaguely misplaced on his desk where he thought he put on little stuff, but mostly he would let it slide. You know, he's in here, he's working these late nights all the time on coffee and cigarettes. He's not really putting too much stock into it, but he said eventually it got creepy though. He said patterns started to form in the activity here, and that's what kind of got to him. He said the most common pattern that would affect him is that he'd be in there at the front desk in the middle of the night, always around like 2 or 3 in the morning, this kind of thing would happen, and he would see this strange flickering movement outside of his peripheral vision. He said, like clockwork, anytime that would happen here, it'd be the precursor for something else bizarre happening in the building. Almost like the phenomenon was kind of announcing itself to him or something like that. So, you know, for example, he'd be in there in the middle of the night, you know, the front desk, he'd be reading or something, and here would come this weird flickering movement, and the next thing he knows, he's hearing little boys playing and laughing upstairs, you know, running back and forth down the hallways. Or on a different occasion, this is where I would have quit, he said one night he's in there at the front desk again, minding his own business again, here comes a weird flickering movement thing. That time, he said he heard little boys giggling and laughing just around the corner from where he's sitting in there. Some of you guys can see there's a stairway in there that goes down into the lobby. He says, I swear when these kids call my name down the stairs, you know, they're trying to get me to come up there or check him out or whatever. And this poor guy, he knows that this place is supposed to be haunted by little boys. You know? He also knows there's no good reason for living kids to be running around here in the middle of the night calling his name down the stairs and all that. But unfortunately for him, as part of his job, when you hear this kind of stuff, especially this bumping around stuff, you'd have to check it out. You have to make sure no one was up there drunk and waking people up or whatever. So you can imagine being this poor guy, you know, roaming around here like 2 or 3 in the morning, he's hearing footsteps and giggles and all this wild stuff. He'd walk around and wouldn't find anybody. You know, so inevitably he'd end up back at the front desk over here, be really creeped out. You know, he said he read a lot of books in there, he tried to keep his mind off it. It's all pre-cell phone, you know, he didn't have Siri to come to his rescue or nothing like that. So, you know, that went on for a while, but eventually this all kind of boiled into a big climax. He said one night he's in there at the front desk, and yet again, okay, here comes this weird flickering movement thing. By now he recognized that pattern. He knows every time that happens in here, something else, you know, freaky happens in the building. So he started to get nervous. He got scared about what was going to happen next. And he said almost like as a response to his own sort of heightened level of fear in there, his own emotions, he saw a pen, an ink pen, directly on the desk in front of him start to vibrate. Okay, almost like there's an earthquake or a big truck going by or something. He said he sat there and watched this pen skitter across the entire length of the desk in front of him until it reached the edge where it then lifted into the air, kind of paused for a second, and then flicked against the wall violently, as if somebody basically walked by, picked it up, kind of teased him with it, flung it against the wall, you know, like they're messing with him. And this poor guy eventually came to cope with all this wild, you know, stuff here by sort of addressing these young spirits or whatever you call them as if they were flesh and blood little boys. Basically, he would yell at them and stuff like that. He'd reprimand them. He'd say, "Okay, guys, that's enough. You know, go to bed. Leave me alone. I don't care what you do in here. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. You know, stay away from me. Stay out of my life and all that." And it's interesting. He said anytime he'd address them like that, you know, kind of sternly with some sort of authority, it would actually work. It would serve to calm down whatever creepy stuff was going on in here, almost like flipping off a switch or what have you. So I guess that's a good thing. You know, at the end of the day, if you're gonna have ghostly kids running around, at least they're, you know, obedient school kids on some level. Ends up being nice. So you know, right here, this takes place basically directly above us, up there on that second floor room, that front-facing room. And there's about a couple who stayed here in 1994 on vacation. And these folks, you know, they're doing what you're likely to do when you're here in the French Quarter on vacation. They're going around, they're having a lot to drink, and they're taking pictures of everything. You know, here's me with an exotic drink, woo, and here's me with an exotic lady, woo, all this kind of stuff. You know, they're having a good time. And they get back to their hotel room at the end of the night, and they've got 2 exposures of film left on the camera. And the guy figures, great, you know, we've got a swamp tour already booked for tomorrow morning. We're going to go out to the swamp tomorrow. We'll see some gators out there. We'll see some, you know, animals. We use up the rest of our film, no big deal. So basically, they went to bed right above us here in the Andrew Jackson, and they woke up the next day, and nothing weird happened. Okay, no kids running around up there, no voices, no apparitions. Everything's totally normal until they got to the swamp the next day, you know, and they go to snap their first photo. So here they are in the swamp, you know, they're out on a little skiff out there, a little boat, and they're surrounded by water, and they look across the way, you know, and here comes a gator or a blue heron or something cool, and they go to snap his photo, and click, 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 nothing happens. Okay, the camera's out of film. And the guy is puzzled by that. You know, he thinks, man, that's weird. And, you know, I thought we had a few exposures left last night, but to be fair, we were out and about in the French Quarter last night. We had a lot to drink out there. You know, we probably took those pictures and forgot. You know, we're gonna get home. It's gonna be me posing with one of those mules going by, something like that. No big deal. So they switch out the roll of film there in the swamp. They go on vacation, and they more or less forget about all that until they get home from vacation and they go to get their pictures developed. Okay, that's where it gets weird. So they took the pictures in, and it turns out those last 2 exposures of film they had left on their camera the night they stayed here in the Andrew Jackson, they came out as photos of the 2 of them asleep in their bed. Interesting, I should say that in quotes. It was really kind of a horrible place back in the day. You wouldn't want to come here on vacation. This is where he had his sort of base of operations. Okay, so to this day, this is wild. You can go out near the mouth of the river, way out that way. You go out there far enough, there's still a place out there to this day called Barataria Bay. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's Spanish for Pirates Hanging out Her Bay, something like that. And back then, that's exactly what it was. Okay, that's where Jean Lafitte and his buddies had their big stockpile of ships and treasures and weapons and all that kind of stuff. And that guy was like the bee's knees of pirates in this region during this time. You know, he was very much, for a long time around here, he was more or less public enemy number 1. That's actually simplifying history quite a bit, but it's convenient for this story. So we're going to fast forward a little bit, and we get to when we Americans eventually showed up here. That happened, I mentioned this before, in 1803. Right, we got here as Americans, Louisiana Purchase. We bought this territory from France, and we show up here as Americans. It turns out our first American governor, Governor Claiborne, he shows up to kind of take stock of the situation in this area he's supposed to control now. And it turns out, oh God, this place is a mess. You know, he's got a bunch of pirates running the mouth of the river, and he says, oh man, we got to figure out a way to put an end to this. You know, he's got a way to find his, put his foot down and show his authority. So he decides he's going to put a price on Jean Lafitte's head. He put a bounty on his head out there for $500. Back then, that's a lot of money. That's a very significant bounty. Okay, but Jean Lafitte didn't take kindly to that. Okay, he turned around a couple weeks later, some different posters come up on the wall, and it looks like, oh, Jean Lafitte's put a price on the governor's head for 3 times the amount, $1,500. That's the kind of guy we're dealing with out there. Okay, he's very much above the law back then. He did what he wanted to do, and he was a really powerful guy around here in the underworld. You know, you didn't go around messing with him and his boys at Barataria Bay. You end up with your picture on the wall. So he goes on doing his thing for a while. Okay, he's a pirate, he's a smuggler, he's public enemy number 1, and eventually the really wild thing about this story is he got a chance to sort of redeem himself in the eyes of the law. Okay, so eventually we come to the War of 1812. I can tell by looking at you guys are War of 1812 enthusiasts. Right? He's got Andrew Jackson posters on us, I don't know how it goes. In case I'm wrong about that, I'll summarize. So the War of 1812, right, this is after the American Revolution. We Americans are fighting the British again for complicated reasons. And by the time we get to this story, it's actually 1814 here. We have a giant problem here in New Orleans. Okay, the problem is there's a big old army of redcoats, British soldiers, just downriver from here. They're getting ready to invade New Orleans. They're going to take us over by force. Okay, and back then that was a really big deal around here. Back then this is just a fledgling American territory. We hadn't put a lot of resources into this place yet. So we didn't have the firepower or the manpower. Back then we literally didn't have enough barrels of gunpowder around here to throw at these guys. So we're in deep trouble. Okay, and that's the British Army. They're one of the most powerful armies in the world at that time. It's a real David and Goliath kind of scenario. So if we're going to defeat the British in this battle, we got to come up with a creative plan. And we got to do it real quick because they're on their way. Okay, so we put our heads together around here in New Orleans, and it turns out at the end of the day, our big, fancy, creative American plan is that we're going to have to ask for help from the pirates. Okay, same guys. We just put a price on their leader's head out there when we showed up. Now we have to go out there hand in hand and kind of, admire their cannons. Say, oh, Jean Lafitte, how you doing, buddy? Man, we've been a big fan of your work for many years, and, we were hoping you'd help us fight the British. You seem like a cool guy. And, of course, he said no. He said, you bastards put a price on my head when he got here. I still remember that. There's people trying to kill me constantly because of you. I don't want to help you. Go away, America. And we said, man, Jean Lafitte, we're sorry about that price on your head, okay? We had a lot to drink that night, what can we say? Listen, we still need your help very badly here, okay? We're going to get taken over by the British. Nobody wants this. Okay, so how about this? We'll give you a pardon, okay, for all of your previous crimes. Now, you got to remember, he'd been a pirate in this region for decades at that point. He's a very wanted man. We're going to forget all that stuff. We're also going to let all his pirate buddies out of jail. He's going to be a hero among his own men, and all he's got to do to earn that stuff is lend us some of those men behind their back, lend us some of the cannons from his ships and his gunpowder, and help us fight the British that way. Okay, so long story short, he decided that's a great deal, I'm doing that. He went for it. So it turns out about 7 miles downriver from where we're standing right now, there's a place down there, it's called Chalmette. Okay, nowadays that's a suburb of New Orleans. But back then that was a sugar plantation, and that's where we ended up fighting the Battle of New Orleans. Okay, so the British showed up out there with their giant intimidating army of redcoats. We Americans hid behind walls and stuff, so we were prone to do. They still didn't come out of that. The pirates showed up with their cannons, they helped us out. Okay, and when the smoke had cleared at the end of this battle, turns out we Americans, with the help of the pirates, we had won. And we didn't just win, we actually stomped them. It was a one-sided victory here for the Americans. So that changed a lot of things around here. Arguably ended the War of 1812. It made it so that we're still independent now from the British. But it also made it so that Jean Lafitte over there, he went from being public enemy number 1 in this region to basically being a local hero. Okay, so nowadays you're going to see his name all across Louisiana. He's a folk hero around here. He's like basically the Robin Hood of New Orleans, if you will. You're going to see the Jean Lafitte Gun Show, okay, Jean Lafitte National Park, you name it, Jean Lafitte that thing. Okay, but this bar over here, you just check it out. This place is actually very special. It's not just named after Jean Lafitte because he's a local hero. This place is actually named after him because it's fairly likely that he was one of the original owners of this bar, along with his brother, Pierre. Okay, Pierre and Jean back then, pirate brothers, also interesting, also bar owners, interesting guys all around. But we know that the original clientele of this bar, turns out the people who were hanging out here back then, turns out they were people just like the Lafittes, right? They were pirates, they were criminals, they were smugglers and stuff. That's who was hanging out here back then. That's who doing their business here. It was like that bar in Star Wars kind of. So murder, right? Anytime you got a social setup like that, you got a bunch of very violent young men. They're making lots and lots of money over a very short period of time. They're kind of romanticized in the local songs and legends. The ladies in there think they're cute with their tricorn hats and their, the cool coats and all that. Anytime you got a social scene like that, you're gonna have wannabes, right? Posers. Other young guys, they want to show how cool and tough they are. They want to ingratiate themselves to the pirate crowd. And if they're lucky, if they're tough enough or whatever, they're gonna earn a spot out there in the Gulf. On one of these pirate ships, they're gonna earn some big bucks that way. So it turns out this ghost story here is about one such young man. Okay, like all young guys, at some point in our life, we decide I'm going to be a pirate. It's my pirate time. And like most of us, this guy doesn't know how to do that. He doesn't have a ship, he doesn't have a sword, he doesn't know much about piracy. But he figures, what? Pirates commit crimes. I reckon I could do some crimes. So he goes around, he starts breaking into houses around this neighborhood. And eventually got pretty lucky for house thief. He came out of one of these buildings around here with what he thought was his big score. He comes out with a very fancy, very valuable looking silver necklace. It's got rare gemstones in it. Looks like it's been finely handmade in Europe. It looks very expensive. And he perks up. He says, oh yeah, this is great. Okay, I'm going to take this thing down to the pirate bar. I'm going to show it off to the boys down there, right? They're going to take one look at this necklace, and they're going to say, dang, son, you were in a crime. You got to join us out in the Gulf. Change your name to Daggerbones, you're going to be a pirate. But it doesn't work like that. This guy, he's naive. He doesn't know any better. So he marches down here to the bar. He goes in through the same doors you guys just went through over there. He's walking around. He's going from shadowy corner to shadowy corner. You guys have seen the shadowy corners are still in there. But back then, they're different, right? There's stuff with pirates and criminals and smugglers and all that. Everybody under the tables, they're armed. They got guns and knives and all that ready to go. Okay, so it's a real tense environment. So he's going from table to table, and he's giving all these guys in there kind of a sales pitch. He puts on his best, like, tough guy pirate voice, whatever, and he's going, hey, man, hey, stole this necklace. I'm great at stealing stuff, just saying. And I'll tell you what, buddy, help me find a buyer for this necklace. I'm going to cut you in on the profit. All right, we're going to split it 50-50, and maybe you'll think of me next time we're here looking for pirate crew. How about it, right? He thinks he's hot stuff. He drops the mic. He walks off. But the guys in there, they're not having it, right? They're making fun of him. They're used to these wannabe guys hanging out here all the time, so they're throwing stuff at him. They're going, yeah, kid, whatever, buzz off. They're not impressed. But this poor guy, he does not give up. Okay, he keeps going. He goes deeper and deeper into the bar, and so he ends up in what is nowadays the men's restroom in the very back. Okay, now back then it was not the men's restroom. Back then, it was a back alleyway behind the bar. Okay, so you can imagine there's a narrow cobblestone alley back there behind the bar. You got the moon overhead up there. You got mist swirling around the ground back there. I'm not sure why, it just makes it more dramatic. You got pirates standing back there in the mist. They're drinking their rum, they're talking about pirate business. And again, this kid approaches the first pirate he sees back there. And he goes into a sales pitch, right? Same deal. He goes, hey man, hey, stole this necklace. Looks valuable, help me find a buyer, I'm gonna cut you in. All right, well the guy back here in the alleyway, again, what is now the men's room, he's into it. He's checking it out, he's looking at this necklace. And the kid, he perks up. He says, finally, somebody's gonna recognize my potential. He's gonna offer me a pirate job. Here comes Daggerbones. He's very excited. But again, it doesn't work out like that. The pirate back here in the alleyway, he's very angry when he responds, and he eventually responds. He says, yeah, kid, I bet we could make a lot of money with this necklace. In fact, I know exactly how much money we could make with this necklace because I bought it as a wedding gift for my sister-in-law just a few weeks ago. Okay, so he flips the thing around and shows the kid, oh Lord, it's been engraved to a very specific lady back there. So this poor guy, he does not know what to do with that information. He's a wannabe pirate here. He's kind of his first rodeo. He stands there, he stammers. He's not sure what to say. Meanwhile, the real pirate back there, the OG pirate, he knows exactly what to do in this scenario. He draws his pirate knife. He pins the kid against the wall by his neck. He goes to work. He stabs him over and over again. Spills his guts all over the back alleyway that kills him. And walks off from the night, with his fancy necklace recovered. So, that's more or less how it works here in New Orleans. Now, fast forward, though, to the modern day. Okay, as you guys have seen, this is a very popular bar here. Thousands of people come here every week. And it's been that way throughout its entire history. One of the wild things about this place is that it's been a bar going all the way back to the time that guy got killed back there. It's been a bar. There was a short time, I'll say, to be accurate, during Prohibition, where suddenly Lafitte's over there became a hardware store. Like I said, it's always been you can always get a screwdriver there, if you know what I mean. So people have been drinking here for many, many years, uninterrupted. And they've been emerging from this bar over all that time, like 200 years, with one particularly consistent ghost story about the place. So people say they see a young man inside there, period mariner's garb for the 1700s. Okay, a guy who looks like a wannabe pirate. And they'll see him in all different areas of the bar. Over the years, the staff is even reporting to see this guy upstairs in their office above the bar. Okay, and they see this guy staggering around, clutching his chest and his stomach as if he's badly wounded. like he's looking for a place out here to fall over and die, or what have you. Now I pointed out before that's Bourbon Street right there. You know, if you walk around on Bourbon Street for like 10 minutes, you know, you're gonna see that guy. But what makes this guy a little more interesting, you know, than your average drinker out here, or somebody dressed up like a pirate or something, is somebody come along inevitably and try to interact with him in some way. You know, they'll try to take his picture, they'll try to talk to him or something like that. And when they do that, you know, basically one of two things will happen. Either this guy will just straight up vanish in front of their face. There's probably the most prevalent stories. People try to take his picture, and they say either, you know, he'll be there, not be there when they move the camera, or not show up on their pictures, that sort of thing. Or I think easily creepier is somebody come along and they'll try to physically touch him in some way. There's a lot of stories about that too, especially people trying to pose with him in pictures. But my favorite one had to do with a young guy on his way to the men's restroom back there. I can relate to this. He said he saw this weird looking pirate guy kind of doubled over on his way to the men's room, like this guy's gonna probably get sick or something, but he really had to go, you know, so he's gonna take his chances. So he goes to go past this guy, and he went to pass him, he went to put a hand on his shoulder, kind of, you know, let him know he's passing, and he said when he went to do that, his hand went right through this guy, and there was nothing left in the spot back there where he was just standing, but kind of a weird cold spot lingering in that area. You know, so very difficult to explain to your drinking buddies if you're out here, you know, just trying to have a good time. You kind of, you know, you become that guy for the rest of the night who's seen the vanishing pirate. Nobody wants to be that guy. It's happened to a lot of folks. Okay, now we could more or less stand here all night talking about this one building. These guys were pretty awful, and like I said, they were bad human beings and stuff. But we're gonna go on something way worse than that right now. We're gonna go check out easily the most disturbing story on this whole tour. Okay, it's also a very famous haunted place here called the Lalaurie Mansion. Have you guys heard of this before? Lalaurie House. Okay, cool. We're gonna go check it out right this way. Okay, follow me up here.